Hello, and thank you for joining us today for our first ever webinar to introduce the brand new International Education Professional Certificate. So before we go into the content of the webinar, I just have a few housekeeping items to go through. So this webinar is being recorded and it will be shared with all participants after the webinar. There is also a chat and a question and answer function enabled, which you can find at the bottom of your screen. So please feel free to introduce yourselves and submit any questions you may have as we go along. So my name is Beth Griffiths, and I'm the Global Engagement Manager at Times Higher Education. I'm also delighted to be joined by Claire Piella, the Managing Director of Global Markets for Common Purpose, and Joanne Hartman, Senior Impact Officer at NAFSA. During this webinar, we will introduce to you the International Education Professional Certificate, or the IEPC for short, and give you a demonstration and a sneak peek into the learner management system, and answer any questions that you may have about the programme. Now, I'm so excited to introduce to you the International Education Professional Certificate, which has been created in partnership with NAFSA, Times Higher Education and Common Purpose. The programme was recently launched by Dr. Fanta Orr, who is Executive Director and CEO at NAFSA. And this was launched during the annual NAFSA conference in New Orleans in May this year. So the IEPC is a professional development programme specifically tailored for international education professionals worldwide, or anyone thinking of moving into a new career in international education. The programme has been designed to empower and give value to international educators at all stages of their career. So this can range from recent graduates all the way through to senior professionals. Altogether, there are 12 modules in the IEPC, and the content of these modules is based upon NAFSA's 12 international education professional competencies. These 12 modules are grouped into 4 packages, and these are decision-making, compliance care, inclusive programs, and agile leadership. In total, the full IEPC program has an average study time of around 12 hours. And it can be studied asynchronously online, which means that you can study this anywhere online and at your own pace. When you successfully complete the program, you'll receive a personalised IEPC certificate, email signature, and social media badges, which you can proudly display. So if you think this is something that you're interested in, please reach out to us or put us in contact with your head of department or whoever manages professional development for your organisation, and we can talk about setting up a number of licences for your department. So I will now pass on to my colleague Claire, who will go into more depth about the IEPC and the learner management system.
Thanks so much, Beth. Delighted to be here with you all. As Beth mentioned, I am the Managing Director of Global Markets for Common Purpose, one of the partners working with NAFSA and THE on this International Education Professional Certificate. So one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about was just giving you a bit of a flavour of the course itself, and wanted, of course, to start with the NAFSA International Professional Competencies that Beth has already mentioned to you. So the IEPC is very much built on these competencies. Now, if I just give you a little bit of context as to where the competencies, these have been in development since 2013 by NAFSA, and very much developed to guide international educators in their professional development and career. So they were built on the research of the NAFSA Competencies Commission. So this is a diverse knowledge community who came together to develop what is very much a peer-led framework of the core skills required for the essential practice of professionals within international education. So really, these competencies are absolutely, as Beth said, at the heart of the IEPC. So really wanted to start, first of all, with those. So what I'm now going to do is I'll stop sharing this. And what I wanted to do is just to share with you the learning platform, to give you a bit of a taste of what this looks like and what this feels like. So bear with me and I will share that with you. Okay. Ah. Okay, sorry, just give me a moment. It's coming. Okay. So this is the platform that we use. So hopefully you can kind of all see this. So this is where you land. So first of all, one of the things to explain is that this is the Evolve Careers platform. Now, Evolve Careers is Common Purpose's digital learning arm, and this is where your journey will take place on the IEPC. So one of the things that I've already mentioned to you is that this is built on the NAFSA International Professional Competencies, but it also gives you access to leading voices in the international education field. And I'll explain a little bit about how that is going to work now. So we'll get started on, first of all, on the International Education Certificate. So once you open this, the first thing that we ask you to do is that each package, and I'll explain the packages following what Beth shared with you in a moment, is that you will look at your own skills assessment. So you do a personalised skills assessment when you start each package. Now, the reason we do this is because once you've completed the module, you'll do a post assessment of your skills. This is very much kind of your own assessment. So this is the first thing. So I'm going to quickly do this and show you kind of what stage this takes you through to. Just putting some figures in there. Oh. Okay, usually it doesn't tell me there's an error. Hang on a minute. I'm just going to show you the next page. So bear with me. Okay, so okay, so what will happen is that once you've completed your pre-skills assessment, you'll land on the opening page. So this package that I'm going to show you is the decision-making package. As Beth shared, each of the packages consists of 3 modules. So there's 12 modules in total that are part of those kind of NAFSA professional competencies. And underneath each of the packages sits 3 of these modules. We've grouped these according to the content within them, and just really grouping in terms of what makes sense. There's a huge amount of overlap in terms of the content that comes out of these modules, but this is very much to help create a learning journey that really very much makes sense and is very much a kind of coherent flowing learning journey. So these are the kind of packages, and these are the competencies that I've referenced. So what we're going to do is we're just going to have a look at one of these, which is the business acumen. Now you'll see here that the business acumen has a guide, and the guide is Sarah Easler. So Sarah is the Assistant Dean, International Programs and Partnerships and Director of the Office of International Programs and Study Abroad for the Haslam College of Business at the University of Tennessee. So Sarah has very much been invited as a subject matter expert within the NAFSA network who can come in and very much kind of talk to what does business acumen look like in her context. So I'll show you kind of how that works. The other key thing is at the beginning of each module, there's some very clear learning outcomes. So the learning outcomes, for example, for the business acumen module are understand how to align business modules with your broader institutional strategies to really support your sustainable financial health. It'll help you to identify the steps that you need to develop your own business acumen skills to achieve the goals of international education, and therefore how to use your resources effectively. And finally, look at how can you articulate how you can champion ethical and fiscally responsible practices and innovation. So let me show you kind of how this works. Okay, so we've done the first introduction. You'll see that throughout the IEPC, there's quite a lot of these kind of quizzes and things to test your knowledge. So you'll find some of these throughout. You'll also find quite a lot of content from Sarah. So I'm just going to show you kind of a little bit from Sarah.
Claire, the sound is not coming through.
Okay, apologies. Sorry. So this is Sarah. So Sarah's just sharing a little bit about the business acumen in the context that she's working in. So we hear from Sarah a little bit here, and then we'll kind of come to just sort of test some of our knowledge. Well, she'll also then talk about institutional strategies and how can you align your own strategy to your institutional goals and your institutional strategy. We then take out some of the things that Sarah's talked about, and there's some tips here around strategic alignment that we pull out from what Sarah shared. And then really importantly, each section within the module has a space for reflections. So this is where you can capture your own notes, what is relevant to your context and your practice. So there's some guided questions that come at the end of each section. I'll show you kind of what that accumulates to kind of shortly. But just to kind of show you what else is in here, once we've gone through the introduction, Sarah talks about what are the key business acumen skills that you need. You know, what are they? How do you develop those more? Again, kind of building in that reflection to each part of this. We'll look at what are you already doing? So getting yourself to sense check what already exists kind of within your institution, within your own practice, and what is it you want to identify that you wanted to develop more of. She talks about innovation as well in this, particularly around AI and how do you embrace AI in the context of your practice. And finally, there's a piece about navigating budgets. So it's not just about how do you set the budget, it's about every part of this that you need to think about identifying funding sources, how do you create that flexible strategy, who do you need to collaborate with on campus as well. So it's not just about navigating and managing the budget, it's also about the stakeholder engagement that becomes part of that. So this is kind of all Sarah continuing. She talks about ethics as well and efficient budget management, and also about kind of entrepreneurship as well. And you'll see at each stage of this is captured what are the key areas that Sarah has been touching upon, and that reflection again to translate that back into your context. And one of the things I should say is that when Sarah talks, she of course references her own context, her own university, and she'll say things like, this is how it works in my office because my office is structured like this. However, for you, that structure may be slightly different. So she's very much kind of thinking about what are the principles that you can translate whatever your context, because the IEPC is very much designed as an international course for international education professionals working within different contexts. Okay, and that's that reflection piece. And I'll just show you kind of as well, the final part of this, really, really important. What then happens at the end is all your reflections come together in one place. You can access those and you can download an action plan as well. So this action plan, I'll just show you this. Hopefully you can see this. So this is the action plan. And again, as I said, this just takes each part of the module and invites you to think about actually what is it that you want to identify and plan within your own context. So you'll see kind of how that works. So really, really helpful to be able to do that as well. I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. One of the other things I wanted to show you was that sorry, and I can see all your comments about the share sound. I just can't see any of these when I'm sharing. I do know this, but I won't share the video of Sarah. Suffice to say, she's absolutely a subject matter expert. A huge amount to learn from her on this particular topic. And as you can see, that's just one of the topics. There are others within that package as well. But one of the things that I wanted to share with you, Beth mentioned, of course, that there's social media badges. So for each of these packages, there's a pre-skills assessment and there's a post-skills assessment. So you'll do the pre-skills, and once you've worked your way through those 3 modules, you'll do your post-skills assessment, and you'll have those 3 action plans that come from each module. Now, of course, there's 4 packages in total. So once you've entered the end, you'll have lots of your action plans and reflections. But for each package, there's a social media badge that comes with it. And I just wanted to show you that badge and what that looks like and how you can use that. Hey. Okay, so this is the badge. So this sits in kind of canvas in the badges, and you can see here, this is the one for decision-making package. So I showed you the business acumen module that sits within business decision-making. And then you've got a little bit more information about, well, what does the decision-making module package encompass? It has 3 1-hour modules. It has the skills and competency assessments, and it also has these action plans and how you'll implement the learning within the context of your role and your career as well. It also talks about what's it made up of. We talked about business acumen, but it's also got people development and data collection analysis within that as well. So you'll have this, and then the next thing is, this is where how it would look under licenses and certifications on your LinkedIn profile. So you can also add it there, and then when you click on this is just a screenshot, it will take you to further information about that decision making. So anybody looking at your LinkedIn profile can also see that kind of you have that as well. So that's the social media badge. And of course, as you mentioned, Beth, as well as that, there's also the certificate that you'll get as well at the end of each one. Great. Yeah, and Tatiana mentions as well the kind of, I've introduced Sarah to you as a subject matter expert, but Sarah is just the person for business acumen. So each of these, there's been a very carefully selected subject matter expert with whom we curate the learning for this particular module. So they're really, really kind of experts in this particular field. I mean, Sarah is kind of, there is no one really you could talk to who knows more about business acumen in this context. So. I think that's it, and hopefully that's given you a flavour of the module as well. Joanne, I'll pass to you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Claire. Please continue to put your questions into the Q&A box. We have some time here. We can answer those questions. As Tatiana has put the link in to the dedicated IEPC webpage, there's an FAQ there as well. There is a fee associated with the IEPC by package or by the whole certificate itself, and we're running a promotional cost right now that is good until December 31st. So all that information is on the FAQ. There's also questions about how long the certificate is valid for, and how long do you have to complete each package? I know Beth is typing furiously in the back to try to answer those questions as well. You have 60 days to complete a package if whether you're subscribed to the entire certificate or individual packages. So please check out the FAQ that is dedicated to that response, to that question. And I think, Jonathan, you had a question regarding whether this is, focused on students or scholars. I would say neither. These are focused on your skills and abilities as an international educator. As you know, the IE competencies are really to hone and elevate and promote your skills and abilities within the international education field. And as Claire pointed out, these are really done by our experts in the field that are hand-selected, that are very familiar with the IE competencies, the NAFSA IE competencies. So very much into building you as a professional in that area with the skills and abilities that we've identified as crucial to an international educator. I'm looking at some of the questions. Claire or Beth, anything else to add that we want to point people to specifically in terms of the questions? You don't have to be a graduate student to do it. You can be a graduate student if you're in that process, but you don't have to be. There are no prerequisites. These are some of the questions that are coming in the Q&A box.
I can see that somebody has, oh, sorry, Joanne. I can see that somebody's asked a question about whether the course is available in different languages. Unfortunately, not at the moment. The course is only available in English. Claire, is there anything else that you would like to add to that one?
It may be something we explore. At the moment, it's in English.
And the question, there was also another question about what happens after the 2 years. This is a long-term project with our partners, Times Higher Ed, as well as Common Purpose. So this is just the first year. We envision 3 years worth of work that is ahead of us as partners in developing the courses for our field. So there's a year 2 and a year 3 that builds and is stackable upon your skills and abilities and your competencies. So there's more to come. It's not just one and done, if you will. We are constantly building on it and of course, hearing feedback from people who have completed the course will be helpful as well. One of the things that we get asked often is about how long does it take? Well, each package is about 3 hours worth of content. So you can self-pace, you can chunk it out in 15 minutes if you only have 15 minutes, as you saw from Claire's demonstration earlier. They're in sections. And so if you only have 15 minutes to spare for that day, you can do 15-minute chunks if you want to. So it is really self-paced. There's a lot of interactivity, as Claire mentioned, you know, the pre and post assessment, there's reflections. You also get to take away with you an action plan that is important. So every 2 months, there'll be a package dropped if you're subscribed to the whole entire certificate. Potentially, it will be around November that you will complete the full certificate itself. Claire, did I miss anything on that piece?
No, I think very, very clear. And I think very clear point about how this is very designed to be very interactive. And absolutely, you can pause at any point and it will save kind of wherever you're up to. And then you can just continue kind of, but it would take you an hour to do each of those modules within the package, as you say, Joanne, and 3 hours in total. There was a question, Joanne, I think you did answer it, but it was just about the kind of who are the speakers. You mentioned, of course, that these are all subject matter experts. So they're people who've got many, many years experience within higher international education, but particularly in the areas that relate to this particular competency. So very carefully chosen to work with them to create the content. And I think, Joanne, a couple of people asked, well, what can I do after I do this? So what benefit does the IEPC give me? And I think the really key thing is this is about kind of the absolute core competencies that are required to work in any kind of international education role. So really the kind of first of its kind to look at what absolutely do you need, and so really cuts across many, many, many topics that of course overlap to enable kind of people to really upskill international educators. I hope that kind of helps, Joanne.
Absolutely. Thank you, Claire. Tatiana has put in a comment as well in terms of group or multiples. If, as Beth mentioned earlier, if you would like to put us in contact with the person at your organization who is responsible for professional development, we're happy to, help facilitate that process and set you up for group pricing or multiples pricing, depending on where you're from. You might be familiar with multiples versus group, so we can help set that up. Again, that email address is iepc@nafsa.org. It's a dedicated email address that you can ask your questions. Are there other questions, Beth, that you think you want to answer live?
Thank you. Yes, I'm just having a look at everyone's questions now. Thank you so much for asking so many questions during this session. Let me just have a look. So we've had a question from somebody asking if the course is for people who work in admissions or recruitment, or is it just for academics? So the answer is that the course is for anybody who's interested in working in international education, anybody who's interested in their own professional development, at people at any stage of their careers. So like I said earlier, people that have maybe recently graduated or more senior professionals, the course can definitely bring value to anybody who wants to work in international education. There are a lot of self-reflections in the course, which is how that it can be adapted to a wide variety of people.
Claire, there's a technical question about subtitles or, transcripts. Do you want to mention that a little bit?
All the videos have closed captions, so you should be able to access the kind of subtitles from the videos as well. There is also a transcript available as well, if that's helpful.
And then there's a question about special software. Do people need special software?
Don't think so. It's all available kind of basically you'll just get access to the learning platform, which is all done through your web browser.
So as I mentioned earlier, there's a dedicated web page that you can access with FAQs. We also have a dedicated email inbox, IEPC@nafsa.org, that you can ask your questions. And I hope please continue sending those questions in. We will, based on those questions, also enhance our FAQs because it lets us know what you're interested in. Can it be downloaded and accessed offline? Claire, there is a question.
The course is designed to be participating online. So, but the part that can be downloaded is of course the action plan, and you can also take off your own reflections as well, so you can keep those for afterwards.
So there's a question about the speakers or the subject matter experts. As Claire mentioned earlier, these are hand-selected people who know and understand the skills and abilities. They supervise people in their daily work. They are known for the competency that they are presenting on, if you will. So Claire and her team go through a process of questions. You might want to talk a little bit about that, Claire, in terms of drawing out the content that is specific to international educators.
Yes. There's quite a long time spent with these subject matter experts in terms of kind of, really getting under the skin really of what is the core as to what is it they do, but also how do you do this? So kind of really what are the skills that kind of are required to be able to do this? So we do both of those, but we also draw a lot on live examples. So we ask the subject matter expert to share a lot of really, really practical examples from their own experience, and then invite people to consider, well, actually, if given what they've just shared, how does that translate into your particular context? So that's really important part of this. And I think I heard somebody say about, oh, how does this translate into different markets? And I did refer to earlier how the subject matter experts, when we talk to them, they're very much aware that they operate within a certain context. And you'll find that a lot of what they refer to, they'll acknowledge when they recognize that this is the context of their particular office because it's how their office is structured, or perhaps it's the culture of their university, or perhaps that's how they operate within their country. And they'll acknowledge that, and they'll also acknowledge, but we recognize that this might look like this in your country, or it might look like this in your context as well, because we've very much designed the content to be relevant within different international contexts. Hope that's helpful.
Yeah,
Joanne.
Thank you, Claire. And there's a question about how does this compare to your diploma certificate in terms of knowledge? And is this also comprehending some kind of networking? Claire? Put you on the spot there. I think this is not as academic. I would say it's more about your practical skills and abilities and knowledge that when you listen to the subject matter experts in each module, they are talking and giving you examples of everyday application and case studies. Claire, more to add to that?
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right, Joanne. And I think, the whole point of the NAFSA competencies was that they were about kind of how do we enhance professional development in practice. And every step of the way, they are really, really about that practice piece. And I think in many ways, the skills and competencies developed through this course are a catalyst, because it's the action plan linked with the development of those skills and competencies that are really important, because that's the invitation that says, how do I translate this in the context of my role and my office and my university? And I think that's where that this becomes much more transformational than just learning the theory of something, because it is about the what you do, but it's also about the how you might do that in practice, which I think sets it apart from the diploma, Joanne.
Thank you, Claire. Do you want to talk about what modules are currently available?
Yes, so we did talk about how the packages would be released every few months up until November time, when all the modules will have been fully released. So at the moment, the one available is the decision-making one, which I showed you an example of. That's got the people development, the data collection, and the business acumen within it. And then the second one that will be released is the compliance management one. That's the second one. I can just show that again in terms of if that's helpful, just that breakdown of what they look like in case anybody kind of missed that at the beginning. If that's helpful, let me just show that in case anyone missed that at the very start. So this was where we did a demonstration just of the introduction to the online learning platform. And this here is the information about the packages. So as I've said, this is the one that's been released at the moment. This one is due very soon, the compliance care one. Within that, you've got compliance management, risk assessment and crisis management, recruitment, enrolling and advising. You then have a third one is inclusive programs, inclusion equity, program development delivery, and teaching, learning, facilitation within that. And your final one is agile leadership. So thinking generally about kind of leadership within the context of international education, relationship cultivation, and stakeholder engagement and communications. And you'll see from a lot of this, some of this content does overlap and there are links between those, but that's really the distinction between that rollout. hopefully that's helpful just to remind us of those packages.
Yes, thank you. So I'm excited to see all the different questions. I hope we've answered a lot of them. As I mentioned, there is an FAQ page as well as a dedicated email, iepc@nafsa.org. Just to point out some of the things we've discussed this morning or afternoon, wherever you are, or evening, the subject matter experts lead you through a module that is an hour long, or you can chunk it out in 15-minute time frame, 20-minute time frames that suits your schedule, and it's self-paced at your own timing. But it is interactive in the sense of you do a pre and post assessment. You also do reflection pieces. And as Claire mentioned earlier, the action plans are what's very critical and important in terms of applying the knowledge you have learned through each module to your own real world case things that you deal with every day. There are questions and tips provided by the subject matter experts, but the action plan actually talks you through some of these steps and considerations in your daily work that you do. This is targeted for newer individuals in the field, but also people who are new to the sector in terms of international education. It's also for people who supervise other people. There was a question in the Q&A box asking, if I supervise an office, is it relevant for me? I think this is a great team professional development opportunity. If you supervise different people, it's a good exercise for your team to go through and be able to talk through scenarios that may be different for you as a supervisor versus a newcomer to the field, for instance, or even graduate students. I think the skills and abilities give you an opening or an opportunity to encourage professional development within your group. And it's really about the skills and abilities at different stages within your international career. Supervisors, if you are interested in setting up group or multiple licenses, please contact us directly. We're happy to help you facilitate that. And as Claire also mentioned, the LinkedIn badge, you can proudly display whether you finish a package or whether you finish the entire certificate. Those are different. Claire or Beth, anything else I forgot to include?
I think you've covered everything, Joanne. I can see that there was a question about kind of having a look at the online platform, again. So hopefully I've gone back and just had a look at that. So hopefully we've covered that off. But I think just the thing to reiterate that under each of these modules, there are some very, very clear kind of learning outcomes outlined as well. So I explained the business acumen one, but each of them has that very clearly. And that's why we do also the pre and post skills assessment to really help look at what are you coming into in terms of your own baseline, because then no matter where you are in your journey, you're setting your own intentions about what you want to get out of the module. And then you're assessing at the end your post skills. And through the action plan, you're setting your own direction about what is it you want to take forward in terms of the skills, competencies, and everything that you've learned through the module. So there's a real sense of kind of ownership no matter where you are in your career journey in international education.
Wonderful. We've come to the end of our webinar. I do want to thank our partners, Times Higher Education and Common Purpose, Claire and Beth, this morning for joining us in this webinar, as well as all the people in the audience. I'm excited to see all the questions that came in and the interest. We will be sending out the link to the recording post-webinar, so be on the lookout for that. As mentioned, there are dedicated web pages as well as email addresses for your questions regarding the specific IEPC. Till then, we look forward to hearing from you, and let us know if you have more questions. Please feel free to reach out. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you.